Hi, I want to introduce everyone to my guest today, John Rabil. He is with a company called Launch, and you can find this at launchstrategylegal.com, all together one word. Thank you, John, for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Happy to be here.
Great. So John is an attorney, and that's what Launch is all about, is providing legal services. And as he has it on the website, it says, Launch offers transparent, I like that, efficient, I like that too, and strategic legal services tailored towards your small business at predictable pricing. I like that part too.
Try to
So
keep it simple.
tell me a little bit about how you got started. What was the idea of Launch? How did you do this?
Sure. Yeah. So I'll try to make this concise. After law school, worked at some law firms, and then at some point decided to open my own firm, which I did back in the town I grew up in. It was a general practice firm, so doing, sort of whatever you could get. And I somehow ended up working with a lot of businesses. And of course, as most people know, or what they think of lawyers, it's always charging by the hour and all of that. And when you, one, own a business, and two, work with a lot of businesses, you start to realize that's not an efficient way for anyone to really operate or to access legal advice, right? So you're automatically at odds with your client. The lawyer wants it to take as long as possible because that's how they're going to run up their billable hours. The client wants it done as quickly and efficiently as possible because they don't have a huge budget or any budget for legal services. So I started thinking about how you could offer better legal services to small businesses. And at that time, subscription services were starting to take off in other service-based businesses. You saw marketing companies doing it, accounting companies, right. IT. So I thought, why can't that work for legal services as well? It's a predictable price. Most importantly, I think it lends itself to using a lawyer as an advisor first, which I think is the real way small businesses should be using a lawyer. And then it's transparent, upfront pricing. You can budget for it. You know what it's going to cost. And there's, no hidden bill at the end of the month that's $12,000 more than you thought.
I love that. I can tell you as a small business person myself, when I have used attorneys, like most people, I think we're kind of afraid of what that bill at the end is going to be. And because of that, it made me hesitate sometimes from asking questions I really needed to get answered. So I love that you have dealt with the pricing issue and you've really framed it for your clients and making it more accessible. I believe that from good things like that come more good things. So I love that whole idea. Absolutely. Now, are you based in Virginia? Do I have that right?
That's right. I'm based out of Richmond, Virginia.
Okay. And attorneys are licensed in states. Is Virginia the only state you're licensed in, or could you help somebody from a different state? How does that work?
Yeah, I'm licensed in Virginia, Washington, D.C., and South Carolina. And there are ways to work with people in other states depending on the specifics of the situation.
So. Okay, great. Because that's good to know. That's good to know. And that was news to me when I realized, oh, if I had an issue, I needed to speak with an attorney that was licensed where my business is licensed or where I am. Yeah, so that's important too. So can you tell me a little bit, working just with small businesses, what are some of the major issues, problems that they come to you and say, hey, John, I need help? What are the top problems that you see small businesses dealing with?
Yeah, I think one of the things that's sort of a foundational issue that they often start with is just making sure they're getting their business entity set up properly. And so what I mean by that is getting their LLC up and running or their corporation up and running. Nobody really wants to be a sole proprietor and open yourself up to personal liability. So
can you explain that for just a minute? Some people might not know that that's really that important, the legal exposure of not having a business construct. Can you talk about that for just a minute?
Yeah, absolutely. So sole proprietors and partnerships generally expose owners to personal liability. And so what I mean by that is anything that goes wrong in the business, you're getting sued or you owe a bunch of money, someone will be able to come after your personal assets. We're talking about your house, your bank accounts, anything you own, basically. So it's really advantageous to set up an LLC or a corporation. They can be owned by single individuals, and you can wall off your personal assets from exposure to what goes on in the business. It's,
That is super important. Thank you. That is so important. I remember when I learned that lesson. It wasn't anything bad, but I remember when I learned why that was so important. Absolutely. So again, I kind of jumped in there with that one. So after that, what are some of the other problems you're seeing small businesses have?
Yeah, so the other few ones that I see sort of regularly, contracts. A lot of times it'll be that they've gotten into an issue with a contract and they want to try and sort of work their way through getting out of that. Or it's just that I've got this business up and running, and it's been in business 5 years maybe, and starting to grow. Things need to be formalized. I'm no longer comfortable with the amount of risk it puts on me to not use contracts and things like that. So helping them get that in place. And then another big one is how to handle workers. So are you using any independent contractors? Are you using any employees? Are you properly identifying them as employees or independent contractors? That's a huge issue for small businesses, leads to a lot of trouble that they could avoid.
Yes.
So
Yes.
helping them through that. A few other regulations in general.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah.
Let me ask you about NDAs. That is a kind of a contract that is really, I know that I use them a lot when I have conversations with partners or with my clients. That's really a big common one. Is that something that you also handle, helping somebody put together an NDA that protects them when they're talking with people, or protects the other party as well? It can go both ways, can't it? How does that work?
Yeah, absolutely. It's certainly something I help with. It can work a couple of ways. It can be one-sided. So it could just be protecting you and your company, or I see a lot of mutual NDAs because each side's bringing something to the table. You're trying to foster some sort of relationship, and that's going to involve putting some info out there, but no one wants that information shared outside the context of that discussion. And I think NDAs are great. They can be used, as you mentioned, in a variety of situations and can really help protect some of the business assets, which are, the things you're secret, but you don't want to get out.
Right. Yeah. Like I said, I use those a lot with my clients. And as soon as I suggest that with a client, they always seem much more at ease to have conversations about their business and, whatever might be sensitive that we're dealing with. I do a lot of analysis. And so that's very sensitive information. So absolutely. Yeah, those are great to have. What are maybe 3 actionable tips that you could give people now, a small business owner? Are there things that they should be looking for? What would be 3 takeaways that they could walk away from this and maybe start actually doing something to better their business?
Yeah. So I think based on a few things we were discussing, one would be to make sure you've got your company set up properly. If you're an LLC or a corporation, whatever it may be, that you've got all the proper paperwork. Filing with the state's not necessarily enough to limit your personal liability. So I'd stay on top of that. I think a general rule is to make sure you have a contract for every relationship you have in business, internal or external. I don't mean something that's extensive or very long, but something in writing that'll protect you and likely help make things easier. And then along the lines of the NDA, I think that sort of starts to bring up a good point. All businesses have some sort of intellectual property. So you want to be able to recognize it when you create it and know what steps you need to take to protect it. Could be an NDA, could be registering a trademark with the USPTO. So paying attention to that.
Great. Yeah, you're right. Because I think sometimes as a small business, we're so busy, doing what we do that we don't realize that we've created something of value that's not just maybe a service or something that we bundled and shipped to somebody, but actually how we run our business and how we do our mark. A lot of this is kind of that intellectual property that you're talking about, and it's very valuable. That's the basis of our business. And if anything happened to that, or someone, compromised that information, that would really be an impact. It would be an impact to me. I imagine it would be an impact to a lot of organizations. Let me ask
Absolutely.
one final question. Do you do any work at all in helping companies get ready for getting cyber insurance? Are there legal things that you can help them? I know a lot of people are having problems getting small businesses qualifying for that. Are there things that you can do to help in that area as well?
Yeah, that's a great point. Great question. It's been, like you said, an issue that's, I think, been front and center for a lot of small businesses. And so usually the way I've worked with that is, one, helping to bring in someone who can talk about the insurance side of it. I think that becomes important. And then working with them on policies that they might need, like internal policies that can limit those types of things. Like you hear about phishing scams and that type of thing. So, you've got a written policy in place that lays out what people should be aware of in terms of limiting cyber risk. And that helps, I think, all around cover the business, and the outcome of it, right, is employees and workers are more aware of what they should be looking out for.
Yep, absolutely. Well, I want to say thank you so much for this quick little interview. And I really think it was so important to bring up that aspect of how to protect ourselves as small business owners, and how to protect the business and the investment that we put so much time and effort into. And how can somebody get a hold of you if they want to reach out?
Yeah, so either by phone, 757-647-9232, or by email, which is jrabil, so it's JRAB as in boy, IL @launchstrategylegal.com.
Excellent. And I'll put all that information down in the bottom of the video as well.
Great. Thanks a lot for having me.
Thanks so much.